everyone. My name is Alexis Goodman, and today I'll be discussing dissociation and dissociative disorders. I'll explain and explore and dive into what dissociation means, how it affects perception and identity, and the main disorders listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I'll also talk about how these disorders differ from other memory-related conditions such as organic amnesia, and some of the controversies surrounding repressed memories. By the end, I hope you'll understand how complex dissociation can be, not just in theory, but in real-life experiences and treatment. So I want to start out by talking about what dissociation is. Dissociation happens when a person feels separated from their sense of self, surroundings, or memories. It's a defense mechanism that helps people cope with overwhelming stress or trauma. Importantly, it's not the same as psychosis. Someone who's dissociating still knows what's real, but can feel like they're observing life from outside their body, like they're in a movie or something. Depersonalization is when you feel disconnected from yourself, like watching your body from the outside, which is also almost like a movie. Derealization, on the other hand, makes the environment seem unreal or foggy, like living in a dream. Both can happen together or separately, and they can often occur after a traumatic or stressful experience. So let's break down the 5 main types of dissociative disorders. The most well-known is dissociative identity disorder, or DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. People with DID have 2 or more distinct identities or alters, each with their own behavior, voice, or even physical mannerisms. It's often linked to severe, repeated trauma during childhood, like neglect or abuse. Dissociative amnesia involves forgetting important personal information, often following trauma and sometimes including fugue states where a person physically travels or wanders away. Depersonalization or derealization disorder is when a person repeatedly feels detached from themselves or their surroundings but still knows what's real. Finally, there are other specified and unspecified dissociative disorders which are used when someone shows dissociative symptoms that don't fully meet the criteria for another diagnosis. So I sort of brushed over what fugue state is, so let's break down dissociative fugue. A dissociative fugue is one of the most fascinating and dramatic types of dissociation, in my opinion, at least. It involves sudden travel away from home, confusion about identity, and an inability to recall the past. People in a fugue state might wake up in a different place, not remembering how they got there or even who they are, which I cannot imagine how scary that would be. The term fugue comes from the Latin word fugere, which means to flee. This reflects both the psychological escape, fleeing from distressing thoughts, and sometimes the physical escape. These episodes are often short-lived but can last hours, days, or even months in rare cases. They usually occur after major psychological trauma such as a loss, war, or abuse. So let's move on to amnesia. It's crucial to separate dissociative amnesia from organic amnesia because organic amnesia results from physical damage to the brain, like a stroke, a head injury, or a neurological disease. Dissociative amnesia, however, is psychological. The brain protects itself by blocking out painful or traumatic memories. In retrograde amnesia, someone can't recall past memories, while in anterograde amnesia, they can't form new ones. This is a more common and often seen in brain injury cases. According to Ribot's law, the closer a memory is to the time of the trauma, the more likely it is to be forgotten. The idea of generalized amnesia, where someone forgets their identity entirely, is extremely rare, and when it happens, dissociative causes are often suspected. So let's talk about our example, Benjamin Kyle. So Benjamin Kyle was found behind a Burger King. He was naked. He was unconscious. He was sunburned and covered in fire ant bites, and he had no identification. When he woke up, he had no memory of anything. He didn't know his name. He didn't know where he came from. He had nothing. And for over 10 years, he lived without knowing who he was, even though he was able to function normally day to day. Eventually, DNA testing revealed his identity as William Burgess Powell, but his case raised debate. Was his amnesia due to brain injury, dissociation, or both? Cases like this remind us how mysterious and complex memory identity can be. One persistent myth in psychology is that people regularly repress memories of traumatic events, pushing them deep into the unconscious mind until they're later recovered. This idea began with the infamous Sigmund Freud, who, in my opinion, half the stuff he said we can't trust. But he believed that the painful memories were stored away to protect the mind. This was the idea of motivated forgetting, where individuals block out memories that are distressing or anxiety inducing either consciously or unconsciously. And for decades, therapists tried to uncover these hidden memories in treatment. However, research later questioned whether such repression truly even exists. Despite its popularity, research has found little evidence supporting the idea that traumatic memories are deeply repressed and later accurately recovered. Psychologist David Holmes in 1990 warned that using repression as an explanation may be hazardous to accurate interpretation of clinical behavior. Many suppose cases of recovered memories emerge in therapy through hypnosis or suggestion, which can unintentionally create false memories. Sometimes these memories reflect normal forgetting, confusion, or reinterpretation, not genuine repression. To test whether repressed memories were a timeless human experience, Harvard psychologist Harrison Pope offered $1,000 to anyone who could find a story, real or fictional, describing repression before 1800. Over 100 historians and scholars submitted examples, but none fit the criteria. This suggested that the concept of repression might not be an ancient psychological truth, but rather a modern cultural construct influenced by media and therapy trends in the 20th century. So basically, Freud made it up like everything else that he made up. So to wrap up, dissociation is best understood as the mind's way of protecting itself from overwhelming experiences. It's like a defense mechanism that allows people to mentally distance themselves from pain when reality feels too difficult to process. For some, it might be a brief, harmless detachment like daydreaming during a boring class, but in more severe cases, such as dissociative identity disorder or dissociative amnesia, it can disrupt daily life, relationships, and one's sense of safety and identity. These disorders remind us how powerful and how fragile human memory and consciousness really are. Our brains are capable of shielding us from pain, but sometimes that protection comes at the cost of connection or self-awareness. It's also really important to separate dissociation from psychosis or from organic brain injuries. While psychosis involves losing touch with reality, dissociation is more about feeling disconnected from reality. And unlike organic amnesia caused by actual head injuries, dissociative amnesia stems from psychological trauma rather than physical damage. We also discussed how myths, like the idea of repressed memories, have influenced public perception. While the concept is popular in movies and media, research suggests that it's extremely rare for people to completely repress traumatic events and then accurately recover them years later. Most of the time, what people experience are normal memory gaps, distorted recall, or even false memories formed through suggestion. Understanding these distinctions helps psychologists and therapists avoid misdiagnoses and provide more compassionate care. Many people with dissociative disorders have experienced severe trauma, often in childhood, and treatment should focus on safety, stabilization, and integration, helping the person reconnect with all parts of their identity and emotions in a healthy way. Lastly, I think dissociation also teaches us something about the broader human resilience. The fact that the mind can adapt in such a complex way shows both our vulnerability and our strength. With awareness, proper treatment, and reduced stigma, people living with dissociative symptoms can lead healthy, stable, and fulfilling lives. Personally, I found this topic super fascinating because it shows how psychology connects mind and body, and how trauma doesn't just affect emotions, but memory, identity, and perception itself. While researching this topic, I realized how important it is to handle cases involving dissociation with empathy, since what might look like confusion or forgetfulness is often the brain's way of surviving trauma. I can't imagine how scary it would be to literally not remember who I am, where I just came from, or even not being able to form memories at all. If I could research this further, I'd want to explore how trauma-informed therapy can help people reintegrate their memories and sense of self safely and effectively.